Dr. Adelheid Rasche is curator of the famous Lipperheide collection in Berlin, and she's curated and written extensively on fashion, and she's sitting on not only one of the world's greatest fashion image collections, but also one of the world's greatest dance image collections. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Heidi Rasche.
Thank you very much to everybody. I also have to get used to work with 2 computers and paper. So I feel more than honored to have the occasion to speak to you today, and I would like to express my deepest thanks to Valerie for including my contribution into this wonderful symposium. When we met last November in Berlin, I could briefly show some objects of the collection. There is some problem with the noise. I'm hearing myself twice. So I could show her some objects of the collection I'm in charge of to Valerie and to Mary Davis. We were looking at early dance theory books, at vintage photographs with German modern dancers from the 1920s, at the French portfolio Sport et Divertissement from 1922 with music by Eric Satie and illustrations from Charles Martin. And I think we spent a great time at these iconic works of art related to dance. As most of you will not know the Lipperheide Costume Library, I would like to introduce briefly this unique museum's collection to you. And one additional mark before continuing, as my mother language is German, I'm apologizing for all mistakes and wrong expressions which I might use and which might make it difficult for you to follow my talk. The Lipperheide Costume Library has its foundings in the private collection of Franz von Lipperheide, a Berlin-based editor of fashion magazines in the late 19th century. The commercial success of Lipperheide can best be compared to Jörg Condé Nast. His magazine, Die Modenwelt, the fashion world, was published worldwide and in more than 15 languages during the last decades of the 19th century. His private collection was focusing on written and pictorial sources concerning all aspects of dress and fashion history. Covering all periods and continents, our collection comprises today about 20,000 volumes of magazines, 20,000 monographs dating from the 16th to the 21st century, approximately 150,000 single images, prints, drawings, and photographs, and some 900 paintings. Subjects like theater and dance, ethnic and occupational costume, travels and sports, caricature, uniforms, dress code, fashion, accessories, and beauty are covered. The range of subjects is incredibly wide, and the holdings very rich in terms of age and internationality. I regularly do special exhibitions and publications based on our own collections. I've listed some of them on this page. This autumn, we are displaying fashion images from the period of World War I. I've brought a display copy of the book with me. It's entitled Wardrobes in Wartime, and it's an English edition. If you're interested to have a look, please join me after the presentation. For today, I'd like to concentrate on some aspects of the Berlin dance scene during the Weimar Republic. All images which you will see on the screen have been selected from our own collections. During the 1920s, fashion and dance were probably the most emphatically interrelated manifestations of the zeitgeist, which marked the pulsating metropolis of Berlin, then the world's third largest city after New York and London. Until 1933, Berlin was a booming center of fashion with huge output figures in all categories, from inexpensive stapleware to the high-demand middle market segment and to exclusive one-off creations by fashion designers who offered original models both of their own collections and from Paris fashion houses. Fashion made in Berlin became an export hit throughout Europe and North America and enjoyed great popularity because it provided a good fit and what they called a wearable chic. The consumption of fashion was just as much part of everyday life of the pleasure-seeking population as the highly diversified leisure culture. Berliners eagerly responded to every novelty in dance, be it a ballet premiere at the Opera House, a new dance orchestra at the Grand Hotel Adlon, a guest performance by Josephine Baker, or the competing revues. Just to give you an example of the impact of dance in the media, I was going through the winter issues from 1926 of the Berlin lifestyle magazine Elegante Welt, The Elegant World. They published illustrated articles about the newest dance halls in Berlin and Paris, about Maddie Christians, a diva of silent film, in dancewear from a well-known Berlin fashion house. Furthermore, they wrote about Berlin-based dance bands and their jazz music. They printed a story by Walter Becker with the promising title, Dance and Love. They discussed at length the then new Berlin musical revue extravaganza, The Night of the Nights by Robert Nelson, which unfolded, quote, in the unrestrained, breathtaking rhythm of New York's Broadway, end quote. And finally, they explained the most recent dance fad, the Charleston. In 1918, the German dance critic Alfons Törek noted two simple but very true phrases. Quote, music, body, costume. These three terms seem to delineate the domain of any form of dance. Everything related in some way or another to dance resides within this conceptual triad, music, body, costume. End quote. A great variety of styles was developed in the immediate post-war years. Classical ballet, rhythmic gymnastics in the manner of Rudolf von Laban and Emil Jacques Dalcroze, modern stage dance, dance revues with groups of showgirls, and finally the various ballroom dances as cultivated at traditional balls and in modern dance clubs. In my talk, I'd like to focus on three of these dance forms. First, on modern stage dance, and in the second part, on ballroom dances and dance revues. The modern dance movement, in German called Ausdruckstanz, so expressive dance, was marked by many individual dancers. Today, I'd like to introduce two very diverse dancers to you, Moleska Gert and Mary Wigman. In August 1926, the famous grotesque dancer Moleska Gert presented her new dance parody entitled Charleston, which she had created in direct response to the ballroom dance that, starting that year, was the hottest trend in dance imported from the United States. In her usually exaggerated, expressionist style, the then 34-year-old dancer interpreted a topical theme, confronting viewers with a caricature of their own existence and of their own personal addiction to pleasure. Gert's stage costume consisted of a transparent top with her breasts clearly showing through, a bright collar, old-fashioned oversized pants, trimmed with lace and heeled bar shoes that were also commonly worn in day-to-day life. The combination of colors hasn't come down to us, but probably there were sharply contrasting colors, which were a hallmark of her dance costumes. By foregoing any outerwear, the dancer very obviously evoked the erotic allure of the parodied dance. At the same time, she skillfully played on the stereotypes of the typical fashion of the time, which had to confront accusations that the evening wear often looked like underwear. In her visual interpretation of the Charleston, Gert exaggerated the fashion conventions of her day and at the same time created a caricature of the decadent bourgeois society. From the beginning of her career, Moleska Gert was well aware of the tremendous importance of her stage costumes. Already at an early stage, she had experienced the intoxicating effect of clothes as evidenced by this anecdote from before 1914. Quote, "One day I put on a red chiffon dress and danced alone in a dark room. While spinning around, I felt this rush coming over me that ever since I've been seeking again and again." Soon she was known for her eccentric costumes with bold color combinations. Another quote from her memories. "One evening prior to the dance show, I invented out of my body puffy orange pantaloons that ended above the knees. I wrapped my upper body tightly. I painted my face in a chalky white, my eyes in bright yellow, and tied a vibrant blue ribbon around my neck and my feet. Shortly afterwards, I performed for the first time in high-heeled shoes. For the first time, I brought bold, pure colors and bold and simple forms on the stage." End quote. Alongside her brilliant career as a dancer, Moleska Gerd also wrote a number of texts on fashion that have until now received scant attention. Some quotes of these texts are included in my text contribution to the book Dance and Fashion, which you will find outside afterwards, edited by Valristi. For her fast-paced dances, Moleska Gerd herself, rather than wearing extravagant models of renowned fashion designers, always dressed in self-designed costumes that were suitable for the stage and included fashionable and eroticizing elements such as flounces, little hats, and short, swinging skirts. Let us now see what can be said on the wardrobe of the famous dancer Mary Wigman. Wigman, whose solo dances were consummate individual performances with strong themes and convincing physical expression, had a large fan following in Germany and when doing guest performances in the United States. Her dance style was emblematic of German dance in its cultural form. Wigman usually designed her own stage costumes and had them manufactured by others. Thank you. Wigman usually designed her own stage costumes and had them manufactured by others. References, could you please stop this? I think it's not part of the afternoon, thank you. References to contemporary fashion played a minor role in her designs, as the garments mainly had to serve the motion and the expression of her moods and thoughts, as well as translate the essence of what she called her soul dance into an external form. Clearly, Wigman was less interested in a fashionable design than in ways to manifest through her stage costume the spatial gestalt of a particular dance. She was particularly attached to her brocade costume from Hexentanz 2, which is Witch Dance 2, and you see it on the screen. A large cloth seamed up on the sides and fastened at the neck and waist. She found this costume years later when cleaning up a closet and instantly remembered how she had bought the fabric. I quote her, "I see myself again standing in the House of Fabrics in Switzerland and being fascinated by the splendor spread out before my eyes. Blazing over the coppery silver ground were boldly dashed metallic ornaments, glistening in gold and silver with black lines piercing through, tantalizing, wild, barbaric. I was as if hypnotized and bought the cloth against my will, for it cost a small fortune, and I knew that I would not have any use for it. All I had was a guilty conscience, and so the showpiece ended up in the fabric drawer of my wardrobe, where for years it remained hidden even from my own view." End quote. It was only when she started working on the witch dance in 1926 that the brocade fabric found its purpose. I continue the quote, "Suddenly it struck me, the brocade cloth, did it not have something about it, in its barbaric beauty, its flaunty recklessness, that corresponded to the rebellious character of the dance. And then there was the first and never used mask of the ceremonial figure, whose featured wear interpreted demonically mine. Suddenly I knew that the clothes and the mask belonged together, and that they had to wait so long to be taken out of their exile only in order for the witch dance to have its characteristic stage form in terms of costume and mask as well. The surviving black and white photographs, which you see here, convey the stage effect of the patterned garment and the demonic mask in an expressive manner, even if the combination of red and gold surely added decisively to the overall impression. To conclude this first part, and I'm showing pictures without going in detail, it's again Mary Wigman on the far left. Then this is, and her group, this is Margarete Wallmann, and these are Harald Kreuzberg dances with Yvonne Georgi as his partner. So to conclude this first part, we can say that the protagonists of new German dance of the 1920s considered the individual dance costume an important vehicle of expression. In modern dance, the dance dress functioned as an aesthetic element of corporality, allowing for the expansion of the body in movement, and it was employed as a means of expression and content. Of paramount importance for harmonious unity of cloth and body was the dancer's sense of self. In general, not much is known about the specific relationship of dancers of this important dance movement to their stage outfits. Who conceived and designed the different costumes? Who manufactured them? The dancers themselves left very few specific statements on the matter, and in the literature too, one mostly finds just descriptions. One exception is a chapter in a book entitled Body and Garment. No, the chapter is entitled Body and Garment, and the book is entitled Der moderne Tanz, The Modern Dance by Ernst Schur, which was published as early as 1910. In Schur's view, the dance costume is essential for stage dance. Only with the stage costume, he says, this stage costume lends the dancing body the appropriate expressiveness. Arguing for a disciplined approach to fashionable tastes, Schur prefers the timeless garment, which is reflected in the many surviving photographs. As we have seen, the dance costumes of the modern dancers of this period were fundamentally different from all other dance forms, dance costumes that were common at the time. I'm showing the other forms with one example each. The classic ballet costume reshapes the body in a stylized way through tutu and pointu on the left. The mask costume, as in the spectacular Bauhaus dances and in Oskar Schlemmer's triadic ballet, negates the body and superimposes artificial structures on it. The leotard and the similar training garments emphasize the athletic aspect of dance, and the exotic dance, as seen in many performances of the Ballet Russe. I don't have a slide for this. It transforms the dancer's body into a historical or folkloristic image. And finally, the fashionable dancewear of the revue theater and ballroom dancing, it serves to display the erotic body. So in the second part of my presentation, I would like to show what look and which qualities fashionable dancewear for social dance was supposed to have in the 1920s. I will focus on images from Berlin, but we should keep in mind that the same is true for Paris or for the US. The usually quite close-fitting bustier top typically had a sleeveless design. Conforming to the fast-moving ballroom dances, the skirts became relatively short around the mid-1920s. They were now preferably flared, sometimes with a design consisting of several panels and ending in tails or flounces. Tulle was described as a preferred material, quote, that already carries a certain lightness within itself, as it were, end quote. In addition, other lightweight silks were used, such as crêpe georgette, crêpe satin, velours transparent, velours brocade, velours soleil, and last but not least, the fashion-resisting crêpe de Chine. Both quotes with the fabrics are from an article in the illustrated magazine Der Tanz, The Dance, from 1926. Artificial silks became increasingly popular. Black lace dresses over silver or gold lame undergarments were also recommended. Well-fitting gold or silver-colored or high-gloss bar shoes of fine chevreau leather were indispensable. Aside from the countless dance bars, clubs, and balls, another mass phenomenon shaped the entertainment repertoire that Berlin offered in the 1920s. I'm referring to the American-style musical revue extravaganza that included large dance numbers. Particularly appealing about them was the constantly changing sets, as well as the richly varied costumes, some of which were bought in Paris or New York, though most of them were designed by German costume or fashion designers. The stage wear of the female protagonist tended to be very close to the fashion of the day. Her costumes could indeed match the quality of haute couture clothes and were often executed by fashion houses. Thus, the successful Berlin fashion designer Johanna Marbach was reportedly hired in 1926 to design and manufacture the women's costume for a revue entitled An und Aus, which means on and off, a reference to the constant changes in women's clothes during those years, as well as to the changes prescribed for different parts of the day. The article in the Elegante Welt, which you see here on the slide, underscored the resplendence and richness of the costumes. Quote, those ruffled, pleated, and draped flowing robes made of brightly colored silk velvet, whose effect has been immensely enhanced by iridescent bead embroideries, end quote. The actress Alice Hetchy, shown on the right, wears an oriental model made of brocade with a culotte skirt. Composed by Walter Kollo, the revue An and Aus included 58 changes of scenery and appearances of stars. Stars mostly engaged from abroad, and as well large dance numbers featuring several groups of showgirls whose costumes were designed by Ludwig Kainer, a multi-talented painter, fashion designer, and stage artist. Highly erotic in design, the showgirl costumes referenced both the latest fashion trends and historical costumes in a combination that was pushed to the extreme. Skirts and tops that were as skimpy as possible, as much rhinestones and glitter as possible, most unusual color combinations and appliques that were as large as possible. More than 400 performances of An and Aus at the Berlin Admiralspalast, which seated 3,000 plus viewers, testified to the success and influence of such revues. We have to keep in mind that the consumer society of the Weimar Republic was mainly formed by the young, middle, and upper middle classes, likewise men and women. After the working days, they enjoyed free time with other independent young people. They frequented bars and theaters and discovered various forms of amusement. The new physical culture of the 1920s was predicated on terms such as agility, litheness, grace, and a slender figure, which people tried to achieve through sports, gymnastics, a healthy diet, and through dance. I'd like to end with an indicative quote from a decidedly modern and contemporary view. The quote is taken from the journal Der Tanz, from an article entitled Dance and the Appearance of the Modern Woman, published in 1928. and you can follow it on the screen. Dance and physical culture have taken on a central role in the life of modern women, and as a result, women have become more agile and nimble. This is reflected in every manifestation of social, professional, and private life. The shift in shape brought about by dance and sports has led to increasing self-confidence. A woman who knows that she is cutting a good figure, who senses that she is drawing admiration, glances when gliding across the dance floor in the arms of her dance partner, gains a new sense of self. This realization has given rise to the cultivation of the type of tender and tall and slender dance-like women with a glamorous erotic aura. She's young and buoyant, much taller than our mothers were, for dancing keeps you young, and the most important at the end, and the demand for a long youth is no longer a luxury, it has become a necessity. Thank you very much for your attention and your patience.
Thank you for calling our attention to some of these amazing German expressionist dance costumes. I wonder, can you tell us anything about their possible influence on American modern dance? They did certainly come over, people like Mary Wigman, and dance in America, didn't they?
Yes, Mary Wigman was one of the dancers who came over. I think most of the others didn't have their tourneys here in the country, but there was a big exchange via the media. The media of the time have been, I would say, even more quicker than today and more intense. We know this also in the other sense that this magazine called Der Tanz, which existed for some 10, 15 years, reported immediately upon every novelty here from the States and vice versa. So there was a big exchange, and I'm sure that when I see images of Mary Wigman, I also can't refrain from thinking of your big Martha Graham. Thank you, I just had a... There was certainly a great influence. Yes?
I'm familiar with Mary Wigman. I was wondering what her ethnicity was. Can you tell us about the demon mask? What is the origin of that and the material that it was made from?
Mm-hmm.
It looked kind of Asian.
I just go back to the slide. It's nicer to speak when you see it. So she had various dances with masks. She was collaborating with a mask maker in Germany. They were made of, wet paper, I would call it in German, and then it's paper mache. Okay, so we use the same word. And she was very famous for these dance masks. As she said, they were featured with her own, on her own face, but then translated in a demonic version. And she also had we have great surviving pictures of other dance masks, also the mask alone without the face in it. It looks like a death mask sometimes. She had a great impact on students. She had a school. You have seen her on one of the slides also with her dance groups. And many of the second generation dancers came out of her school, which was in Dresden, completely bombed in the Second World War. But fortunately, she had some archives outside of her studio and her school. So the Berlin Academy of Arts has the estate of Mary Wigman, which is very rich in terms of unpublished material. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much for being here. I was fascinated. Mary Wigman, I did a little study of when I had to do a costuming project for a local community theater. And I wanted them to be very, very extra Martha Graham, Martha Graham, Martha Graham. So I did a little study, and it took me back to Mary Wigman. And if you Google Mary Wigman and you watch, and I watched it and over and over and over and over again, and then I watched Martha Graham, so that the three dancers, I could evoke what they needed to do on stage at this little tiny theater. It is absolutely fascinating what she did, and that photograph that you showed of the mask with the garment, they showed the film last spring at the Museum of Modern Art when they did the big exhibit there, and that was the first time I'd ever seen Mary Wigman and had not known. Even as a Graham trained dancer, I did not know about her. So I encourage everyone to Google Mary Wigman and look at some of the films, because it is fascinating when you see this
In movement.
captured in movement. And then you talk about the fabric. That was another thing that was so exciting, because I am a fabric librarian for my company. So thank you for bringing this fascinating aspect, which I did not expect today. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. When I was preparing and working on this text, I was really looking for quotes by dancers talking about the quality and the kind of costumes they wanted to use. And I was very astonished to find so little real quotes or memories. So I was so happy to find at least this one piece about this, about the witch dance, where she's talking about the importance of costume and masks. Initially I wanted also to include another section, and I will just very briefly show you the one image I've included in the PowerPoint, but I haven't prepared any text for this, as I think it would take me out of time. I do have various informations that Paul Poiret was in the 1920s working for various German dancers. And you have here, her name is not German, but she was working in Germany, as was Clotilde Derb. Maybe some of you know her name too, married to Alexander Sakharov. And so they had a close couple. Apparently, they are wearing dresses by Poiret, and I would really love to stay in this subject to know more about this collaboration. How did this work? Did they give them a sketch? Or say, I need something in these colors for a Persian dance, or did he, or so I don't know if anybody is here who knows more about this part of Poiret and dance costumes in the 1920s. But I found this in the German Dance Archive, which is situated in Cologne, and is a great source. It's the best, let's say, collection in Germany that we have, also with moving images, which is so important for dance. Thank you for your mentioning the film of Wigman.
There is one little missing link in the Wigman legacy, which is her protege Hanya Holm.
I didn't hear, sorry.
Her protege Hanya Holm, who trained with her in Dresden, was sent by Wigman to the U.S. to establish a school to teach her dance style here in New York in 1931. And Hanya Holm and Martha Graham were contemporaries, the Big Four. So I don't know, I just wanted to insert that into the historical.
The name of Hanya Holm shouldn't be omissed, you're right, but as I was talking about fashion and dance, I didn't really do a genealogy of modern dance from Germany to US. Thank you.